I have presided over thousands of cases. I have watched people destroy their own credibility with a single sentence. I have seen witnesses collapse under cross-examination, business owners lose everything because of one bad decision, and defendants walk into court believing they were the smartest person in the room. But one case still stays with me, not because of the verdict, not because of the evidence, but because a woman walked into my courtroom with a hidden camera, convinced she was about to expose the judge, and left without her phone. Believe me, even after all my years on the bench, I did not expect what happened that day. Her name was Karen Whitmore. And from the moment she entered my courtroom, something felt wrong. Years on the bench teach you how to read people. Not perfectly, but enough to notice when someone is performing. Karen was performing. She wore oversized sunglasses pushed onto her head, carried an expensive handbag, and walked with the confidence of someone who had already decided she was the victim before a single word had been spoken. What caught my attention wasn't her appearance, it was her focus. Most litigants entering court look at their attorney, the evidence table, or the bench. Karen kept looking around the room, studying angles, checking positions, scanning almost like she was preparing for something. Across from her sat Michael Reeves, a local contractor in his early 40s. He looked exhausted. His hands were folded tightly on the table, and there was a sadness behind his eyes that I have seen many times before, the sadness of someone who has been fighting the same battle for months. The case itself appeared simple. Karen claimed Michael had overcharged her for a home renovation project and failed to complete promised work. Michael claimed Karen had approved every invoice, signed every change order, and refused final payment after the work was finished. On paper, it looked ordinary, but ordinary cases rarely become unforgettable. As proceedings began, I noticed something else. Karen barely looked at Michael. Instead, she kept adjusting her purse. Every few minutes. Tiny movements, small, smart corrections. Nothing dramatic, but enough to catch my attention. I remember thinking it was strange. Then again, strange behavior alone means nothing. Courtrooms are stressful places. People fidget. People panic. People act differently under pressure. So I continued. I asked Michael to explain the project timeline. He calmly submitted contracts, photographs, invoices, and text messages. Karen rolled her eyes repeatedly. Every time evidence appeared, she became more irritated. That interested me. Because innocent people usually focus on defending themselves, Karen seemed focused on something else entirely. Then Michael submitted security footage showing completed work inside the property. Karen immediately objected. Not because of the footage itself, because of where the camera had been placed. The objection felt forced, manufactured. And that was when I noticed something disturbing. A small blinking light, barely visible. Peeking from inside Karen's partially open purse, my eyes moved to the purse, then back to Karen, then back to the purse. The blinking light disappeared. Years on the bench teach you patience, so I said nothing. Not yet. Instead, I continued reviewing evidence. Karen smiled. A confident smile, the smile of someone who believed she was getting away with something. And the more confident she became, the more suspicious I became. Then Michael's attorney submitted one final document, a series of text messages. The moment Karen saw them, her confidence cracked. Only for a second, but I saw it. And then she reached into her purse again. That was when I knew the blinking light hadn't been my imagination. And whatever Karen was hiding inside that bag was about to change the entire case. When Karen Whitmore reached into her purse, the entire rhythm of the courtroom changed. Most people would not have noticed it. To them, it looked like a woman adjusting her belongings. But to a judge, small movements matter. A courtroom is full of quiet signals. A witness avoiding eye contact. A defendant tapping one finger too steadily. A plaintiff gripping evidence like it is the only thing keeping them upright. Karen's signal was her purse. She kept touching it at the exact moment's evidence moved closer to the truth. I looked at the bailiff, then back at Karen. I did not speak immediately. Sometimes the most powerful thing a judge can do is wait. Karen believed she was controlling the room, so I let her believe it for a few more seconds. Michael Reeves's attorney began reading the text messages aloud. The first message was from Karen to Michael, sent 3 days after the renovation was completed. It said, "If you expect me to pay the final invoice, you better hope the work is perfect." The second message said, "People like you need to learn that customers have power." The third message made Michael lower his eyes. I can ruin you online before lunch. Karen shifted in her seat. Her hand slid toward the purse again. I asked her, did you send these messages? She smiled. They're out of context. That answer always tells me something. Not no. Not those are fake. Out of context, that means the words exist, but the person is already building a fence around them. Michael explained that after he requested final payment, Karen began posting complaints in neighborhood groups, calling him dishonest, unsafe, and predatory. He had screenshots. He had invoices. He had signed approval forms. Karen listened with that same cold smile. Then she suddenly looked directly at me and said, this is exactly why people need to see what happens in court. The room went quiet. I asked, what does that mean? She leaned back. It means some judges protect businesses and silence regular people. There it was. The performance was beginning. Karen was not just defending a claim. She was trying to create a scene. I asked again, Mrs. Whitmore, what is in your purse? For the first time, her smile weakened. My personal property, she said. The bailiff looked toward me. I said, place the purse on the table. Karen's eyes sharpened. Why? Because I asked you to. She did not move. And that hesitation told the entire room what her words would not. Michael watched silently, almost afraid to breathe. He had the look of a man who had been accused so often that even the truth felt dangerous to hold. Karen finally placed the purse on the table, but she kept one hand on it. That hand mattered. A person holding nothing important does not guard it like evidence. I said, remove your hand. She stared at me. Then, slowly, she lifted her fingers. The courtroom was completely silent now. The bailiff stepped forward and looked inside the open purse. He paused. Then he looked at me and said, Your Honor, there's a phone recording. Karen's face went pale. And suddenly, the woman who claimed she wanted transparency looked terrified of being transparent herself. I asked Karen one question. Were you secretly recording this courtroom? She did not answer. Instead, she looked at the gallery, as if searching for witnesses who might rescue her. No one moved. Then Michael whispered, almost to himself, she did the same thing at my house. That sentence hit the room like a door slamming shut. I looked at him. What do you mean by that? Michael reached for another folder. Karen immediately said, he's lying. Too fast, too sharp, too scared. And in that moment, I realized Karen's phone was not just a courtroom problem. It was the beginning of the real case. When Michael Reeves said Karen had done the same thing at his house, I watched her face more closely than I watched his. That is something experience teaches you. The person speaking may give you facts, but the person being exposed gives you the truth. Karen's expression changed from outrage to calculation. Her eyes moved toward her purse, then toward the courtroom doors, then toward me. She was no longer thinking about the renovation. She was thinking about escape. I asked Michael, explain what you mean. He opened the folder slowly, as if every page inside carried another burden he wished he did not have to share. He said Karen had filmed him during the project without telling him. Not once, not casually, repeatedly. She followed him through the property with her phone partly hidden in her hand, recorded conversations after asking questions designed to make him sound guilty, and then cut those clips into short videos for neighborhood groups. Garen interrupted. I was protecting myself. I looked at her. You will have your turn. She leaned back, but her eyes burned. Michael handed over screenshots from a private neighborhood page. The captions were harsh. Contractor caught lying. This man thinks women are easy targets. Watch how he reacts when confronted. But when Michael showed the full messages around those clips, the story changed. In one video, Karen had asked him, so you admit you changed the price? The clip she posted showed Michael saying, yes, the price changed. But the full recording showed the sentence before it. Karen had requested additional materials and a new stone pattern that cost more money. Michael had explained the difference and asked her to sign an updated change order. The online clip removed all of that. I looked at Karen and saw no shame. That unsettled me more than anger would have. A person who makes a mistake may feel defensive. A person who manipulates truth often feels offended when the manipulation is discovered. Karen was offended. Michael continued. He said the videos damaged his business. 3 clients canceled. One supplier called asking if there was a legal issue. His teenage daughter saw comments online calling him a thief. His voice cracked slightly on that last detail. And I understood then that this case had never been just about money. It was about reputation. That fragile thing a person builds for years and someone else can damage in one afternoon with a phone. I turned back to Karen. Were those videos edited? She said, "Everyone edits videos." The gallery shifted. That answer revealed too much. I said, "That was not my question." Karen folded her arms. I showed the truth. Michael's attorney then submitted a drive containing the full recordings pulled from Michael's security system. Karen stiffened when she saw it. The screen came on. The first clip showed Karen standing in her kitchen, phone angled low, asking Michael loaded questions while he tried to explain the invoice. The hidden recording was obvious now because we could see her hand positioning the device. The second clip showed her stopping him mid-sentence and saying, "Say that again, but simpler." The third clip showed her muttering after he walked away. "Perfect. That'll make him look guilty." The courtroom went silent. Karen looked down. For the first time, she could not call it a misunderstanding. Because the camera had caught the intent behind the camera, I asked her, "Is that your voice?" She whispered, "Yes." Then, as if realizing how weak that sounded, she added, "But I had every right." There it was again. Rights without responsibility, freedom without honesty. A phone in the hands of a truthful person can document abuse. A phone in the hands of a manipulator can manufacture it. And Karen had walked into my courtroom trying to do the same thing to the court itself. I looked at the bailiff. "Secure the phone." Karen's head snapped up. "You can't take my phone," I said. "It is potential evidence of unauthorized recording in this courtroom." She stood so quickly, her chair struck the table. "That phone has private information." I looked directly at her. "Then you should not have used it to secretly record a legal proceeding." The bailiff reached for the purse. Karen grabbed it first, and that was when the courtroom held its breath. When Karen grabbed the purse, I saw the case become something larger than a renovation dispute. It became a test of authority. Not my authority as a person, the authority of the courtroom itself. There is a difference. People often misunderstand that. A judge is not protected because of ego. A courtroom is protected because without order, truth cannot survive. Evidence cannot breathe in chaos. Witnesses cannot speak freely when one person believes rules are optional. Karen held the purse tightly against her chest. The bailiff stopped one step away from her. I said, "Mrs. Whitmore, place the purse on the table." She shook her head. "No, this is illegal." That word came quickly, illegal. People like Karen often use legal language like smoke. They throw it into the room, hoping everyone stops seeing clearly. I said, "The court has reason to believe you secretly recorded a proceeding after being instructed to follow courtroom rules. The phone will be secured." She looked toward the gallery again, still searching for an audience. Then she raised her voice. "Everyone sees this, right? They're taking my property because I exposed them." No one answered. That was the first time Karen seemed truly alone. Michael Reeves sat frozen at his table. I could see pain and disbelief mixing on his face. He had already lived through Karen's edited recordings once. Now he was watching her try the same tactic in court. That kind of pattern matters. One incident can be explained. A pattern reveals character. I told the bailiff to secure the purse. Karen pulled back, not violently at first, but enough. The bailiff's voice stayed calm. "Mom, do not resist," she said. "Don't touch me." I leaned forward. "Mrs. Whitmore, you are moments away from contempt." Her eyes flashed. "Good. Put that on camera." That sentence silenced the room, because in that moment, she admitted the purpose without realizing it. She wanted the confrontation. She wanted a clip. She wanted a few seconds she could cut, crop, post, and label as oppression. And that, viewers, is what frightened me most about the case. Not the phone. The strategy behind the phone. Karen was not trying to show the truth. She was trying to create material. The bailiff carefully removed the purse from her hands and placed it on the table. Karen shouted that her rights were being violated. Her voice bounced against the walls, but the courtroom did not move with her anymore. The phone was retrieved, still recording. The screen showed the courtroom from inside the purse, angled directly toward the bench, a hidden view, a dishonest view. A view designed not to document the full proceeding, but to capture selective moments. I ordered the device secured and preserved for review. Karen sat down hard, breathing fast. Then Michael's attorney asked permission to submit one final exhibit related to Karen's online posts. Karen whispered, "No," just one word, but it carried the fear of someone who knew the phone was not her only problem. The exhibit showed a scheduled post saved in a social media draft folder, captured earlier in screenshots sent anonymously to Michael. The title was already written. "Judge caught protecting crooked contractor." The courtroom went cold. The post had been drafted before I ruled, before the evidence was fully heard, before Karen knew the outcome. She had not come to expose corruption. She had come to manufacture a story. I looked at Karen. For the first time, there was no smile left. And as the draft appeared on the screen, everyone finally understood why she had been recording from the moment she walked in. There are moments in court when evidence does not simply prove a fact. It reveals a plan. That social media draft on the screen revealed Karen Whitmore's plan with brutal clarity. Judge caught, protecting crooked contractor. Those words had been written before I had made a single ruling. Before Michael Reeves had finished presenting his evidence. Before Karen had even been questioned fully. That meant Karen had not entered my courtroom searching for fairness. She had entered with a verdict already written. Her verdict, her story. Her edited little piece of reality, and she only needed my courtroom to provide the background. I looked at Karen and asked, "When did you write that draft?" She stared at the screen, no answer. I asked again, "Before or after this hearing began?" Her lips tightened, still no answer. That silence was not confusion. It was calculation. She was measuring which lie would cost her less. Michael's attorney then revealed the part no one expected. The anonymous screenshots of Karen's draft had not come from a stranger. They had come from Karen's own niece, Madison Cole, a 21-year-old college student who had helped Karen manage local PTA pages and neighborhood groups. Karen's head turned sharply. Madison was sitting in the back row. Until that moment, I had not noticed her. She looked pale, terrified, and deeply ashamed. She stood only after I asked her to approach. Karen whispered, "Madison, don't." That whisper told me more than any objection could have. Madison stepped forward, hands trembling. She said Karen had been planning the courtroom recording for days. Karen had told her that people love a corrupt judge story, and that if the case did not go her way, they would post clips online and pressure the court publicly. The gallery erupted in whispers. I brought them back to silence, Madison continued, her voice breaking. She said Karen had also planned to post edited clips of Michael looking angry, clips of me interrupting her, and clips of the bailiff taking the phone. Then Madison said the line that turned the whole courtroom cold. She said it didn't matter what really happened, because people only watched the first 10 seconds. Michael closed his eyes, and I felt something heavy settle over the room, because that sentence was not just about one case. It was about a sickness I have watched grow outside courtrooms and then crawl inside them. The belief that truth is less valuable than a viral clip. The belief that humiliation is justice if enough strangers click on it. Karen finally exploded. "She's lying. She's a child." Madison flinched. I looked at Karen and said, "She is 21 years old and she is under oath." Karen pointed at Michael. "He put her up to this." Madison shook her head, crying now. Then she handed over printed messages from Karen. One message said, "Make sure the clip starts when the judge interrupts me." Another said, "Cut out anything that makes me look aggressive." And the final message said, "If they take my phone, that's even better. It proves my point." The courtroom reacted all at once. That was the viral moment Karen had wanted, but not the one she planned. She had wanted a clip of herself as the victim. Instead, the court saw a woman preparing to deceive thousands of people before the hearing even ended. I looked at the secured phone on the evidence table. Then I looked at Karen. "You did not lose your phone because this court feared exposure," I said. "You lost it because you used it as part of a plan to manipulate evidence, intimidate a litigant, and misrepresent a legal proceeding." Karen's face collapsed into rage. "You can't silence me," she said. "No," I replied. "But I can stop you from secretly recording this courtroom." The bailiff stepped closer. Corin reached toward the phone, one last desperate movement. And in that second, everyone saw it clearly, even after everything had been exposed. She still cared more about the device than the damage she had caused. The bailiff moved it farther away. Karen shouted, "That's my property." I said, "Today it is evidence." And for the first time since she walked in, Karen Whitmore had nothing left to hide behind. I have delivered rulings that made people cry. I have delivered rulings that made people angry, but some rulings do something different. They restore order after someone tried to replace truth with performance. That day, Karen Whitmore learned a lesson she never expected to learn inside my courtroom. A phone can record images. It cannot protect a lie from evidence. She sat there now without the purse in her hands, without the hidden camera, without the confident smile she had worn when she walked in. Her eyes moved from the secured phone to Michael Reeves, then to Madison Cole, then finally to me. For the first time, she looked small, not because the court had humiliated her, because the truth had removed the costume. Michael sat across from her, shoulders lowered slightly, as if months of tension had finally started leaving his body. Madison stood near the witness area, still wiping her tears, and I remember feeling the emotional weight of that moment. This was not just about a contractor and an unpaid invoice. This was about what happens when someone treats real people like props in their personal story. I ruled in favor of Michael Reeves' Karen's. Claim was dismissed. Michael was awarded the unpaid balance, documented business losses, and court costs. I also ordered the phone preserved for review because it contained unauthorized courtroom recording and potential evidence connected to online harassment and manipulated public postings. Karen tried to interrupt once more. I stopped her. Mrs. Whitmore, you have had many opportunities to speak. What you did with those opportunities was threaten, record, distort, and accuse. She stared at me, breathing hard. You're punishing me for telling the truth, she said. I looked at the evidence table. No. I am holding you accountable for trying to manufacture one. That sentence ended the case, not because Karen accepted it. People like Karen rarely accept the truth the first time it defeats them. But the record accepted it. And sometimes that is enough. Michael gathered his documents slowly. Before he left, he looked at Madison and said, "Thank you for telling the truth." Madison nodded, but she could barely look up. I understood why. Exposing someone in your own family is not easy. Truth can cost people comfort. Sometimes it cost them relationships. But silence would have cost an innocent man his name. As Karen was escorted out, she looked back at the phone one last time. Not at Michael. Not at Madison. Not at the courtroom she had tried to manipulate the phone. That told me everything. She had loved the weapon more than she regretted the wound. And that is why this case stayed with me. Because we live in a time where some people believe a 10-second clip can replace a full truth. They believe if they can cut the beginning, remove the middle, and scream over the ending, they can own the story. But courtrooms do not work that way. At least, not when evidence is allowed to speak. Karen walked in, hoping to expose a judge. Instead, she exposed herself. She thought she could turn the courtroom into content. Instead, the courtroom turned her content into evidence. And when those doors closed behind her, Michael Reeves did not look victorious. He looked relieved. That is the quiet side of justice people rarely see. Not celebration. Relief. The relief of a person whose name has finally been returned to them. So remember this. Recording the truth is not wrong, but recording with the intent to deceive is not courage. It is manipulation. And when manipulation enters a courtroom, it may arrive with confidence. It leaves without control. Sigh.